WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for tuning into West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and all around the world on WADR.org. This is Newslink and here are the top stories. 4 countries in the sub-region collaborate to strengthen border security as violent extremism threatens the population.
People always look at terrorism and think it is a mosquito in the room, and when you get an insecticide and you flee the room, that's the end to it. Terrorism is beyond, so it's beyond that. So it's not just getting an insecticide and fleeing the room and think that the mosquito is over. These are human beings.
A joint investigation gets underway after the armed attack on U.S. convoy in Nigeria that killed 4 people, including police officers. Guinea commences constitutional orientation debate, paving the way for return to constitutional order. IMF approves Ghana's $3 billion balance of payment for economic stabilization.
The IMF deal is not the solution to all our economic challenges. There's a lot more that all of us need to do as an economy to ensure that that recovery comes through.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is James Adjapong with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. In a collaborative effort to combat terrorism, 4 neighboring countries in the sub-region, namely Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, and Ghana, have come together to strengthen their border security. The decision was announced in an ongoing meeting in Lomé, the Togolese capital. The first cross-border cooperation gathering of the year, focusing on enhancing security measures, began on Tuesday, May 16th, and ends today, Thursday, May 18th. This meeting will further discuss measures to protect the regions in northern Togo, the eastern and the center-east of Burkina Faso, Ghana's Upper East region, and the Department of Atakora and Alibori in Benin. Tofik Abdul Nasir with more details.
The consultation sessions between the authorities of the 4 countries aims to prevent the escalation of the crisis and its spread to the Sahel region by fostering effective and coordinated management of shared cross-border areas. Participants discussed common issues and challenges, seeking practical ways to cooperate at the local level. Dr. Margie Peters expressed optimism about the progress made.
I think it's not new. There has always been a Sahel Protection Act, I think 2017 or thereabout, which is in existence, about how our nations can come together and strengthen the multinational joint task force and ensure that instead of waiting for countries to pick up this fight, it should be a holistic fight across the countries that border each other.
Financial and technical assistance for this initiative is provided by the American government through the Regional Support Program for Coastal Countries, PRAPC, and the International Organization for Migration, IOM. The PRAPC collaborates with civil society organizations, youth and women's associations, community leaders, and government authorities. Dr. Margie clarified that fighting terrorism requires significant resources and the support received is crucial.
People always look at terrorism and think it is a mosquito in the room, and when you get an insecticide and you flee the room, that's the end to it. Terrorism is beyond, so it's beyond that. So it's not just getting an insecticide and fleeing the room and think that the mosquito is over. These are human beings. These are human beings with an agenda. These are human beings with a motivation. These are human beings with an ideology. And these are human beings who are product of the society where we both reside. So they know the society like we all do, and they will be able to have their own systems in how they could engage the society.
The consultation sessions aims to enhance cooperation, foster stability, and promote sustainable development in the shared border areas, recognizing the importance of collaborative efforts to address the security and well-being of the communities.
Tofik Abdul Nasir with that report. Authorities in Nigeria and the United States are investigating an attack on a U.S. convoy in southeast Anambra State on Tuesday. The assailants killed 2 consulate staff and 2 policemen while abducting 2 police officers and a driver. Tochukwu Ikenga, the spokesperson for the Anambra State Police Command, announced on Wednesday that security forces are currently searching for the perpetrators and the 3 abducted individuals. Ikenga had, in a separate statement late Tuesday, denied his command's knowledge of the movement of the U.S. convoy until after the attack, noting that the area where the incident occurred is known for separatist violence. Oge Obiareka completes the story.
The Nigerian police said the attackers who opened fire on the motorcade killed the officers and U.S. consulate workers and then burned their corpses along with the vehicles. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack, but authorities suspect separatist agitators in the region. Security forces have attributed the increasing violence in the southeast to the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB. However, security expert Chidi Omeje emphasized that the attack reflects a broader decline in security rather than solely Biafran separatist activities. The IPOB aims to establish an independent state called Biafra by seceding from Nigeria's southeastern region. This movement sparked a civil war in the late 1960s, resulting in an estimated 1 million Biafran casualties, primarily due to famine. In recent years, the region has experienced a rise in attacks, including numerous raids on offices of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in an attempt to disrupt elections. Recall the U.S. State Department announced on Monday that it had imposed a visa ban on Nigerian citizens who undermined the electoral process. However, the specific individuals affected by the ban were not immediately named.
Oge Obiareka for that report. Burkina Faso authorities have announced the deployment of provosts to military troops involved in internal operations or operating outside the national territory. This strategic move aims to effectively supervise anti-terrorist operations and enhance security measures. The decision to deploy provosts was made in accordance with the law establishing the Code of Military Justice, which was adopted on February 16, 2023. As part of this law, the Burkina Faso government has authorized the inclusion of provosts consisting of both judicial police and military officers. These provosts will play a crucial role in combating terrorism by undertaking preventive and repressive actions. Their presence will contribute to the maintenance of law and order, ensuring the safety of the nation and its people in the face of terrorist threats.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Guinea, there seems to be hope and effort toward a return to constitutional order nearly 2 years after the coup against former President Alpha Condé. This is after the National Transitional Council, led by Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, opened the constitutional orientation debate following the symposium on constitutionalism held in February. As Sankule Janko reports, the debate, which began on Monday, May 15, 2023, is set to conclude on May 30, 2023.
According to the president of the legislative body, Dansa Koroma, the constitutional orientation debate aims to overcome controversies and divergences, favoring a consensual approach and constructive inclusiveness. The discussions, according to him, will reflect the demands and recommendations of the population and outline a new horizon for understanding the country's common future. The future fundamental law of Guinea will take into account the first constitution dating from 1958 to 2020. Mamadi Doumbouya's National Rally for Development Committee, CNRD, suspended the controversial 2020 constitution and all the institutions that emerged from it after overthrowing the civilian regime led by Alpha Condé on September 5, 2021. The Prime Minister of the transitional government believes that the future constitution must meet the aspirations of the people and resist the temptations of men while adapting to its environment and embracing the great universal principles while preserving the country's own identity. However, the political coalitions that are members of the forces, views, governance experts say may not participate as they are fighting against the unilateral management of the transition by the ruling junta and are planning to continue the demonstrations that they started last week.
Sankole Janko filed that report. Back here in Senegal, a coalition of over 100 political parties and civil society organization, F24, has pledged its support for opposition leader Ousmane Sonko opposing the potential third-term candidacy of President Macky Sall. President Sall is, however, yet to confirm or deny this claim. At a press conference held in Dakar on Wednesday evening, the coalition strongly condemned the recent outbreaks of violence recorded in part of the country, resulting in at least 3 deaths and significant material damage. These incidents are believed to be linked to the ongoing trial for alleged rape against Sonko. Martisi has more details on this developing story.
During the press conference, various prominent figures, including former Prime Minister Aminata Touré, were in attendance representing the movement. F24, a platform, strongly criticizes the judicial process preceding the trial concerning the alleged rape of opposition figure Ousmane Sonko. Ali Ndo, a former prosecutor and president of a political party affiliated with F24, expressed concerns about the excessive use of force during demonstrations.
Article 138, which demanded that the accused person who have never been held, this person constitutes himself a prisoner, was completely modified by Article 238 of the new law. Now, the accused is obliged to present himself the day before to the clerk's office of the criminal chamber in order to be sure of his representation in justice. What we have witnessed since Sunday has been a platoon of police and gendarmeries heading to Ziguinchor in order to drive Ousmane Sonko, and that is where there is a big problem on the legal level.
F24 plans to bring this matter before international courts in the near future. Abdoulaye Tine, leader of a political party associated with F24, highlighted the platform's opposition to a potential third candidacy of President Macky Sall.
In the days to come, there will be a pool of international lawyers who will carry the fight. We have seen indeed at the time of the arrest of some activists of people bearing blows of batons and kicks. We have also called on the Committee of the United Nations Against Torture, in addition to the Subcommission on the Prevention of Torture, to alert the experts of the United Nations so they may be able to consider the situation of Senegal. The last point is calling on the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in the days to come.
In response, F24 has called for a forthcoming peaceful protest with plans to seek international legal recourse and organize peaceful demonstrations in the future.
Martisi filed that report. Ghana's request for a $3 billion balance of payment support to stabilize its economy has been approved by the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The decision announced in a statement by the IMF on Wednesday evening will result in an immediate disbursement of $600 million. The approved loan is part of Ghana's broader economic recovery program, which aims to secure additional financial support from various donors to bolster the country's economic development efforts. Despite this positive development, economists and financial analysts caution that the country still faces significant challenges and must exercise strict economic and financial discipline. Accra correspondent Atiawene Belalose now reports.
The Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, approved a 36-month arrangement under the Extended Credit Facility in an amount equivalent to $3 billion. The program is based on the government's post-COVID-19 program for economic growth, which aims to restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability and includes wide-ranging reforms for stronger and more inclusive growth. Responding to speculation that the monies allocated may be squandered by the state, Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Dr. Amin Adam, said,
So all the documents are going to be available for the public to continue to scrutinize and also to help with monitoring. Public scrutiny is important because we are supposed to implement a number of measures, and to the extent that the public know what those measures are.
Meanwhile, Information Minister Adjapong says that the deal is not the end of Ghana's financial and economic woes.
The IMF deal is not the solution to all our economic challenges. As we said in July last year, it is one of the pillars that are required to function for the entire economic recovery program of the PCPEG to take place. And there's a lot more that all of us need to do as an economy to ensure that that recovery comes through.
The second tranche of disbursement would be expected by December 2023. This, however, is subject to meeting some conditions under the program. The remaining amount will be disbursed in tranches of $360 million every 6 months, subject to meeting the IMF program conditions. Reporting for Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
The authorities in Niger have initiated a meningitis vaccination campaign in response to the country's reported 1,000 cases of the disease. Minister of Public Health and Social Affairs Idi Ilyasu Mainesara announced the launch of the campaign on Zenda through his Twitter account, stating that it aims to target 372,000 individuals aged between 2 and 29 years. According to the Ministry of Health and Social Affairs Communication Officer Sule Zaberu, Niger has recorded a total of 1,813 meningitis cases, including 102 fatalities from November until now. The Zenda region, located in the southeast, has been particularly affected, with over 1,000 cases and 84 deaths reported. Efforts to combat the disease and protect the population are underway, with the meningitis vaccination campaign being a crucial step in preventing further infections and reducing the impact of the outbreak. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Here is a reminder of our top stories. 4 countries in the sub-region collaborate to strengthen border security as violent extremism threatens the population. A joint investigation gets underway after the armed attack on U.S. convoy in Nigeria that killed 4 people, including police officers. Guinea commences constitutional orientation debate, paving the way for return to constitutional order. IMF approves Ghana's $3 billion balance of payment for economic stabilization. Still ahead, we have our newspaper review, guest interview, and some sports updates. Kindly stay with us.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Our correspondent in Accra, Tiawin Mbela Lawson, is on standby with our newspaper review.
Good morning and welcome to the newspaper review for today from Accra, Ghana. Let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. The screaming headline, IMF approves Ghana's bailout. Some banner headlines. Quayson no longer member of parliament. Supreme Court orders Asin North seat vacant. And then High Court unveils ANAS for Yantechi. Investigative journalists to testify in open court. Another banner headline, Asantehene launches 2023 Green Ghana Day. And Latif Abubakar, Spanish Embassy Premier, Life is a Dream play on May 27. So those are the headlines in the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let's now go to the Daily Guide newspaper. The screaming headlines, students more dynamic, Mamponhene Lord's government. Then some banner headlines, Supreme Court boots out Boga MP from Parliament. An International Monetary Fund board approves $3 billion bailout, and Yantechi unmasks ANAS in court. And the final banner headline, ADB agricultural sector loan hits over 1 billion Ghana cedis. From the Daily Guide newspaper, let's bring you some other stories featured in the Business Finder newspaper. And the screaming headline, Otumfuo solicits support for Green Ghana Day, threatens to deal with chiefs in Galamsey-prone areas. Then another banner headline, electricity increased by 18.36% across board. And a little headline here, it's still a banner headline, National Blue Economy Summit slated from May 31 to June the 1st. The Business Analyst newspaper screaming headline, of course, IMF approves $3 billion ECF for Ghana, $600 million coming on May 19, 2023. Then a lot of banner headlines. Almost 5 million persons above 15 years do not own a smartphone in Ghana, according to the Ghana Statistical Services. Then another banner headline, we will reduce fares if prices of spare parts go down. That's according to transport operators. Then court gives Ato Essien grace period to settle restitution money, and ADB to deepen collaborations with Ministry of Foreign Affairs for agriculture sector growth. Let's end the review by looking at the New Crusading Guide newspaper. The screaming headline, Court sets rules for Anas, strips his mask in Yantechi's case. Then Asin North Member of Parliament booted out as Supreme Court orders Parliament to delete his name. And then IMF board approves Ghana's $3 billion bailout to revive ailing economy. And finally, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia tours WA Youth Resource Center. So those are the headlines in the major dailies for today. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Atiawe Nembela Lawson, for our newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In order to enhance cross-border cooperation and strengthen security measures, a meeting was initiated on Tuesday, May 16th, and is set to conclude today, Thursday, May 18th, among 4 neighboring countries in the sub-region, Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, and Ghana. These countries had previously launched the Accra Initiative in September 2017, driven by a shared objective. This initiative was established through a memorandum of understanding with a focus on crucial areas such as personnel training, cross-border military operations, and the exchange of information and intelligence. Our guest, Adib Sani, will provide insight into the potential impact of this gathering on the fight against terrorism among these neighboring nations.
I strongly doubt there would be any significant difference, because I've always had challenges with different countries at different levels on different occasions, coming together to form different groups, and I feel there's no synergy so far as preventing or countering violent extremism in West Africa is concerned. There are a number of operations, from Operation Kudangu to Operation Bakan. Then we have the ECOWAS Joint Task Force. Then there's Accra Initiative, and a whole lot those of there's G5, Sahel, and the rest. I think it's too much, okay? And when it happens that way, there's no unity of purpose, and things are not, synchronized. As a result, there are gaps, all right? So I think rather all of these groupings should be brought together under one umbrella, so there'll be better coordination amongst the various countries, and hopefully we shall work together to improve, border security, which would invariably lead to improving sub-regional security. So, for example, having Ghana, Burkina Faso, Togo, and Benin coming together without Ivory Coast, it makes it almost useless. Without Mali, which has become a hotbed of terrorist activities. All right. So, rather than splinter it in this manner, we need to come together to, work in a much more collaborative manner.
All right, so in this case, what clear guidelines do you suggest can specifically assist member states to draw their focus on beyond this blanket commitment and assurance?
First of all, we have to come together. And one of the ways that can happen is for donors to push for it, because the monies are coming from elsewhere. And once the donors tell you in the face, no, we're not going to give you money unless we see a much more coordinated approach, I think that would have really helped, okay? Secondly, we need better commitment, because the thing about, border security is the fact that if, for example, Ghana is doing its bit and Burkina Faso is not doing its bit, it makes Ghana's efforts useless. the tendency of a country paying for another country's inefficiencies is very high. In recent years, we've had a number of prison escapes in Nigeria, and a lot of these prisoners flee Nigeria to neighboring countries. You see, so Ghana is one of the countries that has been their favorite destination when they are being sought after in Nigeria. So what in essence it means is Ghana could be paying for Nigeria's inefficiencies, because you can imagine for a prison break to happen only for us to get to know that there were no CCTV cameras, So we need countries to not just talk but walk and show better commitment in realizing these aspirations. Because the thing is, terrorism has become cross-border. It has become so internationalized such that terrorists are able to stage attacks in one country, then withdraw it to another country, rest, regroup, resupply, and go back to attack again. Okay, so with that collaboration between countries, I'm hoping that we'll be able to fight this scourge more effectively, because it is safe to say, and I hate to say this, it is safe to say we are losing the battle against terrorism in West Africa. We are losing the battle against organized criminality, those engaged in human trafficking, in weapons trafficking in West Africa, because they are able to have a fool's day without the authorities able to stop them in their track.
Adib San is a security analyst. And here is Sankole Janko with some sports updates.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Ivorian side Asec Mimosas have been knocked out of the CAF Confederation Cup after a 2-0 defeat by Algiers USM Alga at the semi-finals. This is USM's first continental final since 2015, when they played in the final of the Total Energies CAF Champions League, according to media reports. Elsewhere, Guinea international Naby Keita is set to leave Liverpool after the club announced the departure of 4 stars. James Milner, Robert Firmino and Alexander Oxlade-Chamberlain will all leave Liverpool at the end of the season, the club has confirmed. All 4 players' contracts expire this summer, it has been reported. Keita has limited game time this season, playing only 12 times this term. Keita and his colleagues, according to the club, would be paid special tributes in Liverpool's final Premier League home game of the season against Aston Villa on Saturday. Elsewhere, Gabon's former captain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is set to return to international football after he was convinced by the country's president Ali Bongo Ondimba to come out of retirement. And Manchester City have thrashed reigning champions Real Madrid 4-0 in the UEFA Champions League on Wednesday at the Etihad Stadium. City will play Inter Milan in the finals next month. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sankole, for that sports update. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasted from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County, and in Ghana on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Inyas Bilimu has been exceptional on the console. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek for our Facebook Live coverage. Do interact with us via social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a rebroadcast of our environment program, Enviroscope with Abdullahi Hassan. I am James Adjapong. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.